Thierry Dumoulin is going to say a few words on behalf of ArtNet, and Ada will welcome, and then I'll do the proper introduction, and we'll get things rolling.
Great. Well, good morning, ladies. I'm feeling appropriately outnumbered here this morning. It's fantastic to have you all here. The last time we had this many people in this room, it was for our 401k and healthcare plan discussion. And I have no doubt that the conversation this morning is going to be a whole lot more exciting than that meeting. I want to say a great big thank you to a few people. I will start with our very own Gracie Mansion, who just walked in. Gracie came up to me and said, "Are you familiar with the ArtTable? Because they're fantastic and we should do something together." So I said, "Sure, why not?" And I called up Ada and I said, "We should do something together." And she said, "Sure, let's do something together." That was, and here we are a few weeks later. So a great big thank you as well to the whole team at the ArtTable, Ada, Joy, and everybody on the committee. We're very excited, very proud to be partnering with you and to have such great guests for the first one in this series. And also want to thank Ashley, who many of you have met or interacted with, who made it all happen for us here this morning. So thank you and welcome to ArtNet, and hopefully we'll see you every month.
Well, he said it all. But I just want to welcome you all here. This sort of new configuration of this wonderful institution, which is breakfast and talk and artists in combination. And I want to thank again ArtNet for this wonderful partnership, which is just beginning today, and also to thank the people on our side, on the ArtTable side, particularly the committee, which includes Joy Glidden and Sarah Burkett and Heather Bondari. Am I leaving out anybody?
Gracie.
Who are putting together this entire program. And to thank also Gary and especially Ashley too for their wonderful cooperation and understanding in all of the configurations that it takes to put on something like this. And especially for Joy, who's been our technical expert and the leader of this, of all of that you see here. We thank you, Joy, too.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
And I think it's going to be a great program.
Yes, I'm certain of it. And in fact, Ada talked about our committee, but I'd like to say that a boat doesn't move without the ship crew or whatever. So I'd like to say that the committee that I'm working with happens to be a very strong one, and I just want to introduce them properly. Sarah and Heather and Gracie, could you please stand up for a moment? And also to acknowledge the previous committee, which made this all possible. It started in 2003 and brought us an outstanding group of artists that we loved. I'm only seeing Martina here today.
They didn't find it.
All right. Well, listen, it's been wonderful, and thank you so much for structuring it and for giving it the finesse that it now currently has, and we will carry on. So today, I would like to, because now I don't have to do any of those thank yous. Are there press people here today? I wasn't sure if there was going to be a few press people. All right, so I will skip that too. We are gathered at this early hour to hear from a group of activists referred to by the author Andrea Lavasaro as terrorists. The Guerrilla Girls are a group of anonymous art terrorists who have been fighting sexism and racism in the arts since 1985. In 1985, a group of female artists incensed by an exhibition at the Museum of Modern Art that included 165 artists, and only 17 of them were women, founded the Guerrilla Girls. They dubbed themselves the conscience of the art world and assumed the names of dead women artists and began wearing gorilla masks when they appeared in public, concealing their true identity for reasons that are pretty obvious. They formed in New York City in response to the major lack of women in galleries, museums, and art venues. and art history in general. In 2000, the Guerrilla Girls effectively broke into 3 divisions to address issues of injustice in theater, in the visual arts, and they're continuing to struggle with abortion rights. So that's who we've got. They have since written several books, toured the country, continue making and distributing posters, which many of us in New York have been fortunate to see, but in fact they've been everywhere. Stickers, billboards, etc. And they've received countless awards and are the subject of the documentary Gorillas in Our Midst, which won numerous prizes. Excuse me. The Guerrilla Girls have asked Aimee Wallach to introduce them. So Aimee, thank you very much for being here, and we're honored to have you here, is a filmmaker, art critic, and curator. The Guerrilla Girls made a cameo appearance in her Louise Bourgeois film that she co-directed with Marion Kajori, and it was called The Spider, the Mistress, and the Tangerine. She's also working on Kabakov, the Ilya and Amelia Kabakov, the premier Soviet-born artist documentary also.
Which debuts at Film Forum November 13th.
All right, there you go. Her articles have appeared in such publications as the New Yorker, New York Times, I'm sorry, not the New Yorker, New York Times, The Nation, Wall Street Journal, Smithsonian, Art in America, Art News, Aperture, and she was president in International Art Critics Association for 5 years, and serves on the board of CEC Arts Link, which sponsors artistic exchange with Eastern Europe and Central Asia. So that concludes that part of it, and now I think we are ready for the Guerrilla Girls.
I think that, but since it's hard for them to be in the mask for long periods of time because it's hot and it's warm in here, why don't we go around and do our introductions first?
Okay.
And then after that's done, then they'll come in.
I thank you all. And I could talk to you up and coming events if we need a little more time. Are we ready with the?
I think we're ready with them.
All right.
And now?
All right. Coming up here, ladies. Gorillas.
So I'm not going to do an introduction because Joy did this extraordinary introduction, but really the anarchic, the humor that these women bring to art and to activism is what's always on view and always important. And I have to say, there would be no Jon Stewart without the Guerrilla Girls.
All right.
And we're going to start with Gertrude Stein is going to do a PowerPoint presentation of some of the work they've done over the years.
This is the first poster we ever did. It appeared in the dead of night on West Broadway. And West Broadway, 420 West Broadway was the belly button of the art world. That was where Leo Castelli's gallery was. And this is before the internet. So the way you broadcast ideas was you put posters up. The entire art world saw this poster, which names names. It names names. And one of the reasons that the people decided to be anonymous was we wanted to be able to name names.
And you went after every group, our group, right? You went after artists, galleries, critics, historians, museums. You just went after them.
Nobody was safe.
That's right. These galleries show no more than 10% women artists or none at all. How many women had one-person exhibitions at New York City museums last year? These critics.
to remember it, because in the beginning we said, we know there's a problem, how do we fix it? We literally went into the art books, magazines, the annual reports, and counted. And we were even more appalled than we originally were.
Women artists in America earn only 2/3 of what men do. Women artists earn only 1/3 of what men do. Alice, you tell us.
At this point, we had some sort of reputation, so we could write a poster that just said, like Madonna, even worse in Europe. And we went to documentary, and we made a lot of cards that we passed out and put in posters in bathrooms, but it reminds me of the old days when we first started. We would poster in the middle of 3 o'clock in the morning with buckets of paint and with brooms, and we'd get chased by the cops. It was very different. It was really computer, internet.
Lots of hands-on.
Yes.
And giggles. I mean, you kind of have fun.
Yeah, a lot of fun.
Maybe somebody else can read this one.
Dearest art collector, it has come to our attention that your collection, like most, does not contain enough art by women. We know that you feel terrible about this and will rectify the situation immediately. All our love, Guerrilla Girls. And look at the space on the top here. So what is this?
The Guerrilla Girls went on a retreat in 1999 to a place called Blue Mountain, which is in the Adirondacks. And there we are, on a retreat.
Hopefully the bodies are not in the plants.
Guerrilla Girls 1986 report card. This is really funny.
Mary Boone, Boy Crazy. Grace Morgan at Black's Initiative. Diane Moore, Could Do Better. Leo Castelli, Not Paying Attention. Charles Coles, Needs Work. Marissa Del Rey, No Progress. Alan Frumpkin, Doesn't Follow Directions. Marion Goodman, who is Keep Trying, who's wonderful. Pat Hearn, Delinquent. Marlboro, Failing. Oil and Steel, Underachiever. Pace, Working Below Capacity. Tony Shafrazi, Fail Unsatisfactory. Still Unsatisfactory. Speroni West, bad handwriting. Speroni Westwater, Unforgivable. Edward Thorpe, Making Excellent Progress. Washburn, Unacceptable.
So the Whitney Museum had a biennial, and the Guerrilla Girls did a show which analyzed the value of the trustees' collections in relation to their frequency of exhibition at the Whitney. The way we did this was there was a deep throat inside the Whitney in the Department of Development who gave us the information. She would have been definitely fired. I don't know. She risked her job to give us the information. We also had a target practice. This is a target that tells us, let's see, I can't read the statistics very well. You're supposed to throw a dart at the breast. And the proportion of women and women of color is indicated by the size of the areole and the size of the nipple. Can you figure out?
So non-white women is the worst, that is the nipple. And around it is the areole, non-white men, which is 4.10%. Non-white women is 0.30%. White women is 24.31%. And white men is 71.27%. By any of in the Whitney. Oh, so this was in the film, and somebody should talk. Who wants to talk about it? This was adorable.
There was going to be a show. The Guggenheim established a new branch downtown.
Where Prada is now.
Where Prada is now. It's on Prince and Broadway, right? And the first show that they were going to use to inaugurate their downtown venues was 4 white guys. I can't remember.
4 geniuses.
I think it was Carl.
It was Boyce, Brancusi,
Yeah.
Carl Andre.
Carl Andre, and then one other, I can't remember who it was. Sarah? That was Sarah. And so they wrote this note, and hundreds of women sent it to Tom Prince. And as a result, they picked Louise Bourgeois, and the show became From Brancusi to Bourgeois. Word.
We also made masks for everyone who came to the demonstration.
Yeah.
And they were actually paper bags that had
So
the
everybody
Guerrilla
could be
Girl,
together. Yeah, this was a joint action between the Guerrilla Girls and WAC. And anybody who wanted to protest it.
And they had drums.
WAC was the Women's Action Coalition, just in case.
and we had these very funny ditties that were used at the time that were, unfortunately, I forgot it right now. It was great, just take my word for it.
And Louise came out of the Guggenheim. She was in the Guggenheim. And then when this started, because she was somebody who used to be in these demonstrations, she came out on Rob Storr's arm and joined the crowd.
What's new and happening at the Guggenheim for discriminating art lover, the same old isms.
That's on a paper bag, that's treating you all.
Put this on and join us.
This is a sticker you can put in the ladies' room. It's a white man. White man artificial feminine, the hand resting the women daily requirement of white women and non-whites. The advantages of being a woman artist. Starting here.
We really worked on this, and this was really one of our real masterpieces.
Lots of argument,
Lots of discussion.
discussion.
Argument because
Oh, just the process is everybody threw out ideas and then, some stuck and some didn't, but there were some, disagreements.
why would something not stick, for instance?
Well, even the wording or the
Or
idea.
the tone.
Yeah,
Some were also not as funny,
yeah.
as well as nailing the issue.
So everybody can read this, right?
It was a combination of all of us, yes.
Packets are masterpieces, and it's the one who wrote the longest in the hard time.
That's right.
An interesting connection to my daughter.
And also taking all the negatives and making it positive was very
Yeah,
funny.
it was pretty much.
Powerful.
Which is actually what you've done as a group.
That's right.
Yeah, making it funny and sexy. And that's
Guerrilla Girls pop quiz. Do women have to be naked to get into the Met Museum? For this poster, we famously went to the Met and counted the penises.
It was a penis count.
What's the significance of yo?
That was a graffiti. Actually, from the original painting that we took it from, it was a fan. But what happened was they tried to put them on a bus, and they took it off because they thought it was too obscene because of the fact the fan looked like a penis, and someone graffitied it.
Oh, that what she's holding.
Yeah, what she's holding.
The always the graffiti.
Yeah.
Yeah, the thing in her hand, it meant it to be a mic too, right? A fan or a mic, but it does look valid.
It was originally a fan of the original painting, yeah.
Original.
Bus companies are more enlightened than you.
I love this one. It kind of takes the air out and all.
George Bush, the education president.
Now, I remember that during this time, we had a lot of discussion about bringing in issues about the war that were outside the art world. So this is the beginning of us reaching out and talking about issues that were not just about the fine art world.
Well, maybe the one before it was too, as you're saying, that took on class.
Yeah, yeah.
And then this came on
that.
social. But you did some of these during the Vietnam War too, didn't you?
No.
Oh, no, because that was Vietnam War. Yeah,
was
that
far
was
before
right, was the
we
Iraqi War.
became
Yeah.
a
The Gulf War. Yeah.
Although we would have done very much with that too.
Oh, yeah.
So was there a lot of
news posters?
Was there discussion about whether to become more socially active?
Yes, that's what we had a lot of
Yes, huge amounts of
We had a lot of, conflicting.
No agreement ever reached.
Maybe something we couldn't ignore, it seemed at the time, so we have to deal with it. These are all in the World War.
And currently, are you involved with addressing the military issue that's happening out there, which is the...
So currently, we're going to talk about it.
Yeah, that's another
Yeah.
big banana factory.
Dear Uncle Sam and the news media, the way we won that war was a blast. But compared to Rambo or even Vietnam, it was a real snore. What I like about war is action, seeing blood and guts. Come on, man. 250,000 people got blown away. Why couldn't we see the pieces? Next time we get to kick ass, you'd better show some collateral damage, or else don't hog prime time. You're a real American. So this was about the fact that they didn't show the bodies coming home, right?
Yeah. Sorry, sweetie. Oh, for this poster, we tried calling all the presidents of the art colleges to get the information, and it did not work at all. So then we called the secretaries. Top 10 ways to tell if you're an art world token.
Oh, yeah.
Who is the slimy creature? Oh, the joys of being a woman playwright. Towards the end of the millennium, we started to think about how the cultural scene in general was our palette, and ended up forming wings. This is the beginning of the theater wing. Artists who look at discrimination in the theater world. This is a Tony protest. It's a tragedy on Broadway, and it isn't Electra. At risk. In New York, there's a statute on the books that you cannot protest in a mask. Now, this was put there for the benefit of the police to control the Ku Klux Klan. But it, of course, affects the Guerrilla Girls as well.
So how have you gotten around that?
Just schmoozing the cops.
We charmed them.
Charmed them.
Give them a banana.
We gave them a banana.
Welcome to New York, the city of decent food, decent people, and decent art.
You remember the Madonna, the elephant done Madonna? Everybody knows that. Chris O'Feely.
Think gender doesn't matter in the new economy, think again. That's the end of my brief.
Before this, the Guerrilla Girls, who jump in on everything, and have this wonderful camaraderie, and as you can tell, love to tell stories, decided that they really want to handle this that way. And not only they're going to jump in, but anybody who wants to, please jump in and ask your questions. But I mean, from the beginning, the Guerrilla Girls was formed as a collective. And it was formed, in those days, the idea was you weren't going to have rules, you weren't going to have hierarchies, you were going to share everything, you were going to discuss everything. They didn't vote by majority, you had to have consensus, imagine. And not even 60%, it's a consensus. And that was an idea. I mean, in those days, I mean, Marcia Tucker started the new museum. Marcia Tucker had been a curator at the Whitney Museum, where they were not showing women. She had a Joan Mitchell show, which was a very big deal. And so she decided to start a new museum and show all kinds of artists of different color and different persuasions and women and everybody, and it started in the museum. And that idea has now become the very corporate new museum that we have now. So that's how things progress. But I want to go back to those earlier days, and somebody should tell Holly Solomon's story. Holly Solomon was a very gorgeous, outspoken gal, first collector and then gallerist.
Well, there was a symposium at Cooper Union, and at one point she was on the panel, and she said, if only you would just take off your mask, everybody would see what beautiful women you were and be a big success in the art world. And then she said, women's power lies in their breasts.
And we had a discussion about that, in fact, that a lot of the women in the early days were like Carolee Schneeberg, were very, very beautiful, who made it big, and that sometimes still is the case. And that is one thing that the Guerrilla Girls used, right? You used everything.
Yeah, and we wanted to make feminism sexy and funny and had such a bad rap in the media. Yes, you know, group of women who were just angry.
Well, there's always this question whether women have a sense of humor.
Feminism is
We want to redefine it.
the
I got a dirty rap and so bring it back again. That was
There was a lot of negativity about feminism in general, and we wanted to make it funny and sexy, and also we want to call attention to ourselves, and there were many reasons why this really worked, and especially the combination of the Guerrilla mask, which was a fabulous. We were a guerrilla group. We used the Guerrilla mask. So it was a play on that. So there were many things that called attention to us that worked really well. We used to wear short skirts and flirt a lot with the audience. Well, we loved it too.
Yeah, and we did not want our identity to be revealed because we wanted the issues to be focused. One of the issues, the thought, what we're doing, focused on the issues and not who we were as artists, because a lot of us had careers and well-known, and it was a mixture of artists. So that was another strong reason to use the mask, was to focus on the issues at hand.
And I understand that the mask, I had the idea because somebody misspelled gorilla as gorilla, and you thought, aha.
Mm-hmm.
And does each of you design your own mask?
No.
I
would say we go and get them commercially.
We're going to talk about anonymity in a minute, and which you brought up, which is really important. But first, why don't you kind of bring us up to date to some of the things, the ways in which the Guerrilla Girls has changed. Bring us up to contemporary times.
At the turn of the millennium, 3 wings formed. One of them focused on the art world, one of them focused on the workplace, especially the wired workplace, the fact that we're now in a cultural environment where it's a horizontal, less hierarchical situation, and women can advance themselves in the wired workplace, or so we were led to believe. And then the theater world, inequities in the theater world. So there are 3 active wings right now. I could go to one of them if you want.
Yes.
Okay. I could try to figure that out.
It's hard to do this with a mask.
Okay. This is the young girls who are focused on the wired workplace. Heads of state, this is a piece about how guys who run corporations in countries still think it's perfectly okay to treat women like slaves. We're getting an award here from Yoko. We're back in the jungle again.
It's called Broadband, Guerrilla Girls Broadband.
Oh, so the Broads did a, let's see, the Broads did a couple of posters that I can show you.
to take the pressure off her, I'm going to bring up the fact that there was then, at one point, what the girls have come, as you can tell, the girls come up with, well, first of all, calling themselves girls at a time when girls was a bad thing to call yourselves. They come up with outrageous ways of doing things. They had a split, which they have come to call the banana split. And the reason for the split basically is that they were a collective with no rules, no hierarchy, nobody owned anything, everybody was trying to do things in different ways. Younger women were coming in with different agendas than some of the older women, and two of the women who had, in fact, the organization had formed in the loft of Frida Kahlo. Okay, you found this?
The advantages of no choice whatsoever. This is a bus shelter project in Buffalo. Buffalo, the home of reproductive rights. Now, if you go there now, it's a desert. There's not much going on. They're working on a map abortion project that will look at abortion laws across the United States. Every single day I read the paper and there's something. Just today the law in Arizona was reversed because it was just too punitive. You cannot, according to the law that they were trying to put into place, you couldn't have an abortion 18 weeks after conception. War. So you can see that the broads have decided that the world, the big world, is their palette. That the art world is too small and too rarefied to be the limit of what they want to examine.
How many Guerrilla Girls exist?
I'm not supposed to tell you that.
But there have been, between 1985
and thousands.
Thousands.
We have enormous support all over the place.
Between 1985 and 2000, there were 100 Guerrilla Girls that came in and out.
Yeah.
But there have been all kinds of ancillary people, too.
How did somebody become a Guerrilla Girl? Was it exclusive or inclusive? I mean, did you say to some women, no, we don't want you, or how did it work?
People were invited by other Guerrilla Girls.
A mentor, yeah.
Are you all artists?
Yeah.
No museum personnel or anything like that?
We let a few in.
Yeah, maybe
There's some among us that are part of us.
Well, my guess is that Marcia, for instance, was a Guerrilla Girl. There were probably some people.
That's something that's all speculation.
But that does bring us to the anonymity thing, which is that so that two of the Guerrilla Girls, Frida Kahlo, whose loft, the organization, was started in 1985, and Kit Kollwitz, decided to file for what's it called? Trademark status, and then sued the other Guerrilla Girls, like Broadband and the theater group, for infringement of trademark, and it became a court case. And as a result of that court case, they outed themselves in papers. So, Kahlo was Guerilla Semple, who I don't know, and Kollwitz was Erica Rothenberg. And Jeffrey Tobin in the New Yorker published the names, and New York Magazine published them as well. And since then, or maybe even before, there has been a whole discussion, which we are bringing here, about anonymity. There are Guerrilla Girls who would like to be known, and there are Guerrilla Girls who adamantly think that's a terrible idea. You brought up one reason for anonymity. What were some of the other reasons for anonymity, or are they now?
I think it's still the same focus, is that if you're anonymous, the issues become primary. And if you're not, there's a possibility of undermining the issues with personality. And as a culture, we seem to be so celebrity and personality obsessed. So in part, being anonymous gives you a certain freedom, as do the masks, you know, just you can say anything. But you know, people vacillate. People put a lot of work into this organization, and sometimes, you know, and then perhaps inadvertently, two names were revealed, and as a collective, everybody participated, and so people credit, you know, also.
And remember the few of us who are professors too, and many times students will come into me, to my classes, Professor, did you hear about this group called the Guerilla Girls? And it's very hard at this point. It almost seems counteractive. In order to keep the history alive, there's part of me that believes that it's time to really talk about the real stories, the real faces behind the masks. Because I think what we did was important, and there's still a lot of work done. Maybe there's a different venue to do it, but what we did, I think, maybe it should be from 1985 to 2000, where we know we call history because we're in the super sad. It's very hard for me to say, I don't know what I'm talking about. And I feel I should be really sharing it with them, and inspiring them, helping them form their own kind of ideas about it. So that's a frustrating thing that's happened more over and over. I'm not the only one who's had
Which Guerilla Girl are you again?
Allison.
You are Allison. So Allison, you've actually been making portraits of the Guerilla Girls in masks and without masks, right?
Well, that's Johnson.
Oh, you have. I'm sorry, I'm confused. Okay.
So what's your girl name?
Johnsonetta Stanley Evans. She was a relatively unknown photographer from Maine. And I chose that name in part, you know, in part people chose their names to honor known artists from prior times. And I chose the name in part to highlight the fact that the art world is made of many, many people, most of whom never achieve any, you know, fame. But it takes a whole community to sort of foster genius or have genius emerge. So anyway, so the project involves taking portraits in mask and out of mask of everyone who was ever part of the Guerilla Girls. To highlight the fact that it was a collective and everybody adds, whether they add just by participating in a discussion or whether they do research or whether they do gigs or, you know, anyway. So it's a history of and a timeline.
And what in a certain way, it's a combination. Because it's good because the anonymity, when people think of the Guerilla Girls, they don't think of one name. They think of what it stands for, and we've been extremely successful in terms of that. So it's not about a specific personality, it's about the Guerilla Girls, period. But then again, we're also reliving a lot of what the what women have been totaled basically in history. There have been anonymous over the years. I use the name Guerilla Girl 1 because it's about all the people who have been feminists and who have not been feminists and are not known in history because of the fact they've been women. One of the issues. So it's in a certain way you shoot yourself in the foot because there's so much energy and time that has been devoted and going to a lot of these gigs and working out these fabulous posters, and we also put them on mailboxes which were practically arrested, and all kinds of things that we did. So in a certain way, we want a lot of people want to get credit for the time that we put in. So there's a combination of a yes and a no in terms of what is important. And it's the people who have put the time in, many of them feel that they want to get that credit. So,
everybody feels about that.
Yeah.
Yes,
Are you ready for that?
we actually wanted your feeling about what you think about continuing the anonymity. Not that we're always going to take your consensus here. We can still do what we want. Keep that in mind. That's the kind of group we are. And yes, and then we say we'll do what the hell we want. But nevertheless, we wanted to hear what you think about keeping the anonymity, or also a combination of also naming some of the people. We did a long time ago do a poster that named we named women who were part of the group and were not part of the group. We called them up and said, do you want to be on a poster that said you are a Guerilla Girl?